Yokoso, welcome all to Project RoadHaus episode 8. Throughout this episode, we will be addressing the tilt I have on all the panels because I'm not trying to have 3 charge controllers running for one array, as well as my junction box on the roof, waterproofing that, cutting the hole out for it, routing all my wiring for roof AC, Ethernet cord for Starlink dish, and then leveling out the rack as well as routing the wires for the array. On top of that, I'll be digging into the ramp door later, as well as the interior plywood and what not to do with there. First things first, I'm crawling underneath the middle side, grabbing all the fastener bolts, removing them, and preparing to take off all these panels. It was kind of a pain because I had to crawl deep into the middle. Luckily there's enough room to do so, but outside of that, I just run a ladder around the outside of the truck so I don't have to crawl around just to reach the outside ones, which are very accessible from the sides. Also, instead of pulling each one down at once, I'm just getting them all loose so I can pull them all down together. Now jumping forward to getting the rack flat. This one I did 2-piece flat bars. I swapped all of those out and cut down the 10-footers to size so that it was better supported throughout the whole rack. Slight comparison between pitched roof and then the flat. Here shows my hatch fitment for the hatch door that opens up there. And then there's a slight overhang towards the front.
It's a bit special.
But don't worry there, that will be covered up with sheet metal eventually.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Oh la la!
And here we are gathering up the equipment to do the waterproof junction box up top for all my cables.
Oh la la!
Taking off the fuse for rooftop AC, gonna extend those wires quite a bit.
Oh, well. King in the castle, king in the castle. Have a chair, I have a chair. Oh, go do this, king in the castle.
Apologies for the intermittent lines. It's the lights. They're the cheap AC ones. I can't afford to my own shop. This is a rental, so it is out of my hands. Here we go with stretching all the wires out, making sure they're going to be long enough to reach the box, and then with the other one we'll just make sure they're the same length so there's no differences there. I'm no engineer, I know the information is out there about it. I don't know if it really matters whether they're the same length or not, but they are. Spooky, scary techniques with a razor knife. I end up paying for this later on.
Jeez.
Wear gloves, boys and girls. Also, maybe try and avoid working in a shop alone by yourself out in the fields. Soldering away, make sure everything's set. And with the heat shrink I used here, I'm not worried about it really being in the weather to begin with, but it is heat shrink and the glue is the hardening kind, so I won't have to worry about water getting inside my cables here. Throwing some label on the end of these cables so I don't get them mixed up after the junction box.
He is my neighbor, Nur Sultan Tuliakbay. He is paining my assholes. Give your meat a good old rub.
Now here we're just closing off the end of that wire loom that came with the AC, and then adding some more on to the end here to get through the rest of this channel. Now on to the fun part of squaring out the junction box, cutting the hole for the lower wires to pass through, and installing all the bungs and short connectors for my bus bars.
King in the castle, king in the castle. Have a chair, I have a chair.
Now at this point, I'm laying out the plug connectors to my bus bars inside this junction box here with the MC4 connections to my solar array. Now the wiring I used was oversized by quite a bit, and it was also coarse stranded. 2 mistakes there. Now I know what you're thinking. Do me a favor, don't run to the comment section right now and threaten me or my family. Thanks. I ensured everything was soldered, well connected, and it also fit in between the glands of the MC4 connectors, so not a huge loss. I understand the mistake. It will be addressed later, but again, avoid the comment section for that. And if there's anybody out there right now that's still watching this and enjoying this, do me a favor, subscribe, maybe like the video. It's free. And maybe it'll influence me to do a lot more of these because I build cool things sometimes and I film them. Crimping away at the bus bar lugs. Seems that the crimping tool needed some adjustment, so we adjusted it with what we had. Again, avoid the comments for the death threats. Quick little photo roll of how our plugs came out. Stepped it up to 4 AWG wire for the connections down below. Negative array block.
BAM!
Positive array block.
Peanut butter and jam!
Now, as you can see here, I have 6 ports for my series parallel connections into the box junction. I initially did that incorrectly. It was supposed to be everything parallel, and I did not realize that until the end because I bought my inverter later on. But the inverter I have is a 6000 XP, and it requires a bunch of voltage. I think starting voltage of like 80 volts, somewhere around there. And then up to peak voltage is like 150. So I ended up rewiring everything after I got the panel set, and now it is running correctly as everything is in series.
Ah, come on! You're gonna fall unless you take my hand.
I'm talking about all the way to the top, yeah. Unjustifiably in a position that I'd rather not be in. But the cream will rise to the top, oh yeah. Macho Madness, yeah, has got more to offer.
And these panels are not slouches at all. I believe they came in at 68 pounds each. We'll say 69 for nice factor. Mucho rough for lifting by myself in my shop alone in the middle of a field. But could we have asked for help? Absolutely. Did we? Absolutely not. Here we're installing the brackets to secure our panels to our rack. Now with the new set of panels here, they are bifacial, so as you can see, it almost looks see-through throughout the panel, like the top of the panel kind of looks like the bottom of the panel. Now they have a yield, they say it comes in at about 100 watts. So the panels are 400 watts, and then the bifacial side makes it, quotation marks, 500 watts off the reflection. So the sun goes through the top, bounces off the white roof, and then back through the bottom of the panel to make a little bit more power. Definitely a mighty upgrade from the closed cell 380 watt panels I had up there before. This side was a little bit of a struggle bus, so we got out the handy dandy ratchet strap to help us along. Mid-broadcast shout out to C418 for open sourcing all of his music, as long as it's original content. That helps a lot of creators out, I'm sure. It definitely helped me out because gaining copyright licenses and whatnot seemed to be a headache that I just didn't want to conquer. Shout out to C418 again. Here we're running through to disconnect all the zip ties to wire in the panels incorrectly, but nonetheless. I made sure that this underspace here was tall enough so that I could maintain everything within. So like all the middle bolts for these panel arrays, I have to crawl in through the middle and tighten them from the bottom. So that way, say one comes loose down the road somewhere, I have the ability to replace it or fix it wherever I'm at. It doesn't have to become a huge deal. Now in the essence of that, it does create a lot of dead space and unused area on the truck, but I'm thinking a giant storage box up here couldn't hurt. Snowboards, maybe a spot for a surfboard would be pretty sweet. To be continued there. This one took a lot more finagling, so we got out the rubber convincing tool to smooth the process along. Slight peek through from the bottom side, from the back. Top grid, looking nice. Truck view from down yonder. Rack's poking out quite a bit, but we'll hide that later.
Power comes in, bounces off the flat, power comes back out. 2 times, double power. 2 times.
I believe this was right before I took the truck out to the scale. Krusty Krab looking doors, lighting away. And here is at my first camping spot that I took it to on my trip to work. Now to get cracking on this drawbridge door. Now you'll see here I marked out where the 2x4 framing on the interior of the van lines up, and I have 4 holes on each side of that. I'm going to run banding strap around the support of the 2x4. That way it's not just holding on to the sheeted aluminum, just because I didn't want it to tear on the aluminum every time I lift up the door and then eventually be ripped off of the truck. So we're going around the 2x4 with that, and then we got a nice plate on this side. Should work out okay. Got to ensure that the door still closes with the plate up there. Stringing out the little wiring kit that came with the hoist, as well as hooking it up to the bottom to see how it works. Hit the function test on the door, got some framing on it as well as the insulation. And I mean, you got to get the dirt bike in there to make sure the ramp works.
2 perk 30s, perky dance, make me do my perky dance.
Yeah! 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 I can see the light! I can see the light!
Diving back into it, now we are looking at our door locks, the magnetic or electromagnetic door locks. Got like a 600-pound magnet that you can turn off and on, controlled by a switch, or there's also a secret button that I put somewhere in the truck that also unlocks the doors. It's not a full-on preventative measure, but it sure limits what you can get in and out of the door because you got to fit it through that window. So it definitely has its function.
Magnet test, take 1. So we got it on there. And it's not even all the way, so we're going to say this is 400 pounds of the 600 capacity it's got. Yeah, that's... can't even, like, get close to that. So... that's good. Let's turn it off here. Make sure... yeah.
Sizing down the roll pins for the alignment. And here we are installing the 30, soon to be 50 amp plug for the RV cable. Shore power hookup, I guess you would call it. Now I threw in the 30 amp because I was under the impression that that was the most common one at the campground. And then I get to the campground I stayed at and it was 50 amp. So I'm going to switch that out for a 50 amp at some point. Get some airplane glue sealant on there. A couple of self-tappers to keep it in place. And then wipe away as much crud as possible because that stuff was nasty. And I know, before you rush to the comments and threaten my life or my family's life because I use self-tappers, do us all a favor, don't. Here we're gathering the stuff to put the lock sets on my front door, porch door we'll call it. Now here we're just rough fitting the lock as it sits, but I did go back through and re-glue the sheets of plywood within the door and stain it so it doesn't get damaged throughout the weather, even though it's not going to see much weather inside my porch, just a preventative measure to keep the door from falling apart. And yes, I definitely had to make custom doors. I wanted to do an arch doorway, that was my own thing, but to begin with it would have had to have been a custom door regardless because of the height. Nobody really makes like a 5'6" doorway, we'll call it, maybe, yeah, about 5'5" we'll say. Now, nobody makes that size of door, clearly, so we did it ourselves. There's that 30 amp RV plug. I don't have any time lapses of me building this cover for my array, but I did end up going up the bottom as well so the bugs and flies and stuff won't fly up underneath it. So I sealed that corner off as well, about like 2 feet to the back. That way you don't collect the barrage of bugs, mosquitoes, bees, everything you can catch on a freeway on a hot, steamy night. And here's just a real quick walkthrough of what we got going on. Paint and primer and stain.